Chapter 2095. Dustless skillfully lifted Tokisaki Kurumi's skirt, exposing her fair skin to Dustless. Bastard, put it down. Tokisaki Kurumi felt a chill on her buttocks. She yelled angrily and slapped Dustless out of reflex. You still want to resist? Seeing this, Wu-Chen smiled disdainfully and easily grabbed the attacking arm. Damn it, with her arm caught, Tokisaki Kurumi struggled with all her might and cursed, damn you, you better kill me, or else what? Wu-Chen sneered when he heard that. The arm that was raised high fell down. Slap. A bright red palm print appeared on Tokisaki Kurumi's buttocks. This time, Wu-Chen didn't show any mercy at all. The clear red palm print occupied a quarter of the entire area of her perky buttocks. On her fair skin, the palm print was particularly conspicuous. You're already a captive and you still dare to be so arrogant. If I don't teach you a lesson, you'll really think that I'm the reincarnation of a merciful bodhisattva. Dustless looked into Tokisaki Kurumi's eyes and chuckled. How is it? How do you feel? Do you still want to resist? Why don't I do it again? As he spoke, Dustless raised his arm. Ouch. No. Tokisaki Kurumi gritted her teeth in pain. Tears welled up in her eyes. She purposely said in a coquettish tone, I'll obey you, okay? As long as you don't hit me, I'll do anything to you. Phew. Tokisaki Kurumi moved closer to Dustless's ear and blew a mouthful of hot air into Dustless's right ear. Don't doubt my words. A strong man like you is very likable. Dustless remained silent. He didn't respond, nor did he reject Tokisaki Kurumi's provocation. However, he didn't accept it either. Although you're a little strong, you're still just a lecher in the end. Seeing Dustless's silence, Tokisaki Kurumi's eyes glinted. She knew that she had a chance. Silence meant tacit consent. She stretched her waist and displayed her graceful body to Dustless. It had to be said that Toshiaki Kurumi was a true seductress. Her figure was great, and her appearance was impeccable. The places that were supposed to be protruding were not flat, and the places that were supposed to be protruding were also protruding. Especially Toshiaki Kurumi, who was different from the elves. She was extremely bold and would not be restrained by worldly norms. She was a seductress that could make one's blood boil. Am I pretty? Blinking her crystalline pupils, Tokisaki Kurumi purposely used some sensitive parts of her body in an attempt to draw out the evil fire in his heart. However, Dustless only glanced at Tokisaki Kurumi. His casual reply almost made her vomit blood. Not bad. You have a nose and eyes. Dustless glanced at Tokisaki Kurumi and answered casually. You, Tokisaki Kurumi's mouth twitched. If she could, she would have bitten Dustless to death. What kind of reply was that? Who didn't have eyes and nose? He was obviously trying to brush her off. You still dare to pretend to be calm? Tokisaki Kurumi glared at Dustless and sneered inwardly. Don't think that you're not a lecherous bastard just because you're pretending to be calm. How about I dance for you? Tokisaki Kurumi said with a smile as she swayed her snake-like waist. Really? Dustless's bored eyes lit up. He nodded silently. Try to be quick. Tokisaki Kurumi snorted in her mind. She wanted to use this dance to confuse Dustless or find a chance to escape. After pulling away from Wu-Chen for a while, Tokisaki Kurumi lightly tapped on the grass with her feet. Soon after, her graceful body soared into the air like a dragonfly skimming the surface of the water. Her graceful body gently rotated, looking quite artistic. In terms of dancing, although Dustless was a layman, he was still a little dazed. What a lecherous bastard. Tokisaki Kurumi saw Dustless staring at her in a daze. She couldn't help but feel proud. Dustless was like a monk who didn't care about her. Now, he was staring at her in a daze. It was obvious that it was all an act. Men are really lecherous bastards. Tokisaki Kurumi snorted and began to ponder. What kind of method should I use to escape? Should I use a direct method, come here, A satisfied voice suddenly sounded. Tokisaki Kurumi snapped out of her thoughts. She turned to look at Dustless, who was looking at her with interest, and frowned. Is this guy trying to make me do it? Tokisaki Kurumi was nervous. If Dustless used force, she couldn't do anything. She couldn't use her ability and could only wait for death. Very good. Not bad. Dustless gave her a thumbs up and looked at Tokisaki Kurumi. How about this? How? Tokisaki Kurumi, who was close to Dustless, subconsciously took a step back. This guy was going to use force. You're good at gymnastics. I'll leave the task of teaching everyone radio gymnastics to you. Dustless said with satisfaction as he patted Tokisaki Kurumi's shoulder. Huh? Gymnastics? Tokisaki Kurumi looked at Dustless with a dumbfounded expression. That's ballet, not radio gymnastics. She yelled frantically. Dustless scratched his head awkwardly and said apologetically, so it's dancing. I thought you were performing radio gymnastics for me. I even wanted to ask you to be my PE class representative. Plop. Tokisaki Kurumi fainted from anger after hearing Dustless's answer. She was foaming at the mouth and regretting communicating with Dustless. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2096. But, there were some things that could not be easily resolved. Just like the current situation, how did Dustless take away his pendant? Chong Gongjin expressed that he did not feel anything at all. He did not even look at it. Looks like my training is not enough. Thinking of this, Chong Gongjin suffered a great blow. If Wu Chen had wanted to kill him just now, perhaps he would have become a corpse. It's just an elf. I'm not going to keep quiet after being humiliated like this. Chong Gongjin gritted his teeth and looked at Dustless with hatred. Who is this? Out of curiosity, Dustless opened the accessory in his hand. What came into view was an old photo. The people in the photo were two young children, both of them had blue hair. The two children were very young, probably only a few years old. Who allowed you to look at other people's belongings? Chong Gongjin's face flashed with anger when he saw this. He tiptoed lightly and rushed forward. Slash. The sword light cut through Dustless's body. However, the feeling this time was different from before. Chong Gongjin clearly felt that he had hit something hard and looked over subconsciously. How is this possible? How can a human, no, an elf's body be so hard? Chong Gongjin's eyes widened and almost fell out. He looked over and saw that the person who blocked the beam saber was a fair finger. Her skin was as white as snow, and her skin was as smooth as a newborn baby's. It was this finger that looked like it could not withstand a single blow, as if it would break at any moment. However, at this moment, it was extraordinarily sturdy, unbelievably blocking the tip of the beam saber. What's there to be surprised about? Dustless carefully examined the girl's shocked expression. He teased her softly and said, being too shocked only shows that you are narrow-minded. However, it's normal for you to be shocked. If I didn't have some means to shock you, how could I tame that stubborn little elf, Night Sword God Toka, with my fists? Not everyone was like Itsuka Shido, who had countless beautiful girls throwing themselves at him when his protagonist aura was slightly activated. Dustless did not think that he had that kind of charisma. Of course, he didn't need it. In this world, only the fist was the absolute truth. For those who were not convinced, they could use their fists to make the other party make the right choice. Don't flatter yourself. Chong Gongjin, who was extremely displeased, suddenly retreated in a flash when he heard this. He stopped when he was a dozen meters away from Dustless. Soon after, a piercing cold light shot out from his eyes. He forcefully stomped his feet on the ground and charged over at an even more terrifying speed. Just a mere sprite. The incomparably sharp laser blade slashed towards Dustless's head. You're calling me an elf again? Forget it, you can think whatever you want. Hearing this, Dustless only shook his head and smiled without saying anything. All along, he had been thought of as an elf, the incarnation of evil. However, Dustless didn't care about this and was too lazy to explain. In any case, in this long life of his, he was often misunderstood. Swish. Swish. A light blade that could cut through iron like mud descended from the sky, and it looked like it was about to crush Dustless's head. The scene seemed to have frozen, and time seemed to have stopped at this moment. At this moment, Dustless suddenly opened his arms, and a turbulent repulsive force erupted from his body. Chakra instantly erupted. Shinra Tensei. Bang! Chonggong little face instantly turned pale as if he had been slapped in the face. His body flew out in a sorry state. What kind of elf is this guy? At first, I thought he could manipulate light, but now it seems that it's not that simple. He can even manipulate an unimaginable force like repulsive force. Chonggong supported his trembling body and looked at Dustless warily. He muttered to himself cautiously, "This is the first time I've seen a male elf. Are they all so powerful?" Chonggong little face kept changing. He stared at Dustless's calm expression and felt an inexplicable pressure. He was sure that this annoying guy had not even used 1/10 of his strength. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so calm. "Young lady, keep coming. Are you going to give up?" Dustless curled his fingers and said with a smile, "Your brother is a very strange person. Now, his sister is also different from the rest. It's rare. How about this? Seeing that you have an excellent constitution and delicate features, I think you'll have a better future if you join me. Dream on. I'm not so low as to join the elves." Chonggong snorted coldly and rejected Dustless's offer. Then, he swooped down again. Like a moth to the flame. Seeing this, Dustless shook his head helplessly and narrowed his eyes slightly. The moment Chonggong was about to make contact with him, his right arm suddenly shot out like lightning. Bang! He grabbed Chonggong neck skillfully, smashed him to the ground, and held him down tightly. Cough, cough, cough. With his throat grabbed, Chonggong coughed and struggled with all his might. He kicked Dustless with all his might and attacked his vital parts. "Young lady, the game of house is over." Dustless smiled as he grabbed the young lady's throat easily. "Also, I advise you not to resist me. If I use a little more force, your throat will be crushed in an instant. Bones mixed with blood. Do you want to see how beautiful they are?" This sentence was like a sharp all-piercing into Chonggong chest. His limbs, which were still resisting, calmed down. His dull eyes stared straight at Dustless. "That's more like it." Dustless smiled and let go of his arm. The moment he let go of Chonggong neck, something strange happened. Chapter 2097. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. A black shadow leaped into the air with a sharp blade in his hand. He aimed at Dustless's back with a ferocious expression and stabbed down with all his might. Crack. Dustless's back was pierced through like a piece of paper by the mysterious person, leaving a huge hole. "It's not over yet." Chongyashina, who had freed herself from the struggle, revealed a ferocious expression. She held a beam saber in her hand and slashed down without hesitation. Poochie. The previous insult had obviously provoked Chongyashina's anger. She slashed Dustless's head with her sword. Poochie. 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 As if she was still angry, Chongyashina slashed down with her sword again. After slicing Dustless's body into 8 pieces, she stopped with satisfaction. Huff huff huff, although it happened in a split second, Chongyashina had slashed dozens of times. She was exhausted. Beads of sweat slowly dripped down her hair. "Thank you, Tashiichi Origami." While wiping her sweat, Chongyashina thanked Tashiichi Origami with a smile. She praised, "So you were pretending to be unconscious all this time. You're really smart." "It's not that I'm smart." Tashiichi Origami glanced at Chongyashina and analyzed, "In the end, This guy was too careless. He thought he was invincible. He underestimated us. And Tashiichi Origami seemed to have recalled something. Her eyes were rolling. I heard your conversation just now. Your brother is Itsuka Shido? I forgot to tell you. I'm his girlfriend. If you don't mind, you can call me sister-in-law. Sister-in-law? Chongia Shina's eyes suddenly shrunk. She was stunned. Yes. As if she was narrating something very ordinary, Tashiichi Origami's tone was calm. He's liked me for many years. I've liked him for many years too. Many years? Chongia Shina broke out in cold sweat. How many years was many years? Itsuka Shido was around 17 years old this year. Buzz buzz buzz, suddenly, an unusual dazzling light flashed in the dark enclosed space. The huge flash was as dazzling as the sun. The two girls instinctively closed their eyes. This light, could it be that the guy has revived again? Chong Gongjin's tone carried a trace of unconcealable shock. Just as he was about to step forward to find out what was going on, he suddenly felt a chill on his back, as if he had been targeted by the god of death. What a heartless girl who likes to bite the hand that feeds her. I didn't kill you just now, but you cut me into 8 pieces. I must teach you a lesson. The moment he finished speaking, Chong Gongjina was shocked to find that he was being picked up. Let me go, don't touch me with your dirty hands, or I'll chop you up. Chong Gongjin blushed and turned his head to glare at Dustless. To his grief and indignation, he found that he was like a pet that was simply picked up by Dustless. No matter how hard he struggled, he could not escape from the devil's grasp. You want to chop me up? You deserve a beating. Dustless raised his arm and stared at the girl's fair legs. They were flawless, as beautiful and clean as snow. However, this was not Dustless's target. What kind of crappy equipment is this? Are you trying to go against me? Staring at the girls, but Dustless frowned. Chong Gongjina's but was covered by the AST members' equipment. There was no place for him to attack. He wants to hit my butt. Fortunately, I have the equipment to block it for me, or else this stinky hooligan would have succeeded. Seeing Dustless frowning, Chong Gongjina, who had been defeated, showed a rare hint of joy. She suddenly felt that this heavy equipment was too fitting. You should give up. Kill me if you have the guts. Chong Gongjina's eyes regained some color and her tone sounded rather arrogant. I'm a very kind person. If you want to give up, then I'll give up. Besides, you're so cute, I can't bear to kill you. Dustless smiled mysteriously. Then you should just let us go. I promise that I won't trouble you in the future. Chong Gongjina purposely acted coquettishly, her small face showing a very cute curve. TSK, I can spare your life, but punishment is necessary. The mysterious smile on Dustless's face turned into a teasing one. What are you trying to do? Chong Gongjina felt numb after being stared at by Dustless's sneaky eyes. She felt a sense of fear that she had never felt before. That pair of bright eyes was terrifying, as if they were going to swallow her alive. Don't worry, it's nothing difficult. I just want to explore your body. Dustless smiled casually. Explore my body? Chong Gongjina suddenly panicked and shouted, don't you mess around. Let me tell you, I'm sick there. And I'm having my period. Sick there? Upon hearing that, Dustless was stunned for a moment. Looking at the terrified face of the young girl, he pondered for a while and his eyes flashed with understanding. He sneered and said, little brat, although you're not bad looking and will be a beauty in the future, you think too highly of yourself. You're not worthy of having sex with me. You. Chong Gongjina was enraged by Dustless's words. Her face turned red as she said, didn't you say that you wanted to explore my body? Yes. Dustless nodded and said lazily, I said that because there's something wrong with your body. Someone has done something to it. You can only live for about 10 years at most. If I don't save you, you'll definitely die. And now, you're delusional enough to think that I'll marry a little girl like you. Even if you're narcissistic, there's a limit to it. You're not worthy of me. Pfft. Upon hearing that, Chonggong-jina was so enraged by Dustless that she started foaming at the mouth. In the end, she rolled her eyes and fainted like Tokisaki Kurumi. Those words were too hurtful. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2098. The temperament of young people these days is really bad. They can't even take a little blow. Really useless. Dustless shook his head in disappointment. He lowered his head and looked at the young girl who was foaming at the mouth. He could only sigh in boredom. She really couldn't take the blow. What about you? Dustless turned his head and looked at Koichi Origami with a smile. There was a hint of teasing on his face. What do you want to do? Koichi Origami looked at Dustless cautiously. She was frightened by his stare and her body couldn't help but tremble slightly. Even though Koichi Origami hid it very well, Dustless's fiery golden eyes saw it clearly. No flaw could escape his eyes. What do you plan to do to me? I'll say it in advance. I already have a maid to choose. As for you, kill me if you want. I'm not interested in other things, especially servants. Koichi Origami interrupted Dustless impolitely and turned her head away in an extremely arrogant manner. Become my servant? When did I let you say you want to be my servant? Glancing at Koichi Origami indifferently, Dustless bluntly said, You want to be my servant? I'm the one who despises you. You. Hearing this, Koichi Origami's mouth twitched. She almost couldn't help but pounce on Dustless and bite him to death. This guy's words were really too infuriating. You what? What kind of person do you think can never be my follower? Dustless looked at Koichi Origami with disdain and impolitely commented, It's your good fortune that I have my eyes on you. You should thank the heavens. It must be a blessing from the heavens. If it's really a blessing, why didn't you disappear? Koichi Origami looked at Dustless, unwilling to admit defeat. TSK, what a vicious woman. You actually prayed for me to disappear. Dustless looked at Koichi Origami with disdain. After staring at her for a while, he shook his head and said, No, you're too far away. What do you mean? Yuichi Origami frowned and asked. Originally, she disdained to pay attention to Dustless, but this guy always made a surprising move. If things went wrong, she would suffer a big loss, causing Yuichi Origami to suffer. I said you're not fit to be my servant. Dustless shook his head and looked carefully at the origami before saying, You're too scheming. If I put you by my side, you might threaten others. Origami looked at Dustless expressionlessly, but her heart was secretly happy. She couldn't wait for Dustless to kick her out. However, since you're my captive, I've decided. Dustless looked at Yuichi Origami playfully and suddenly announced, I don't need you to be my maid. I already have Shixiang and Shixio. I have enough maids. How about this, I still need someone to help me wash my feet. Why don't you do it? Plop. Kite One Origami's eyes rolled back, and he staggered and almost fell down. Don't go too far. Origami was fuming with anger. She rarely got angry and her mental state was unstable. But at this moment, she was really infuriated by Wu Chen's words. Who do you think I am? You actually want me to help you wash your feet. This is simply bullying. Kite One Origami picked up the beam saber, but this time, she didn't attack Dustless. Instead, she put it on her own throat. Are you planning to commit suicide? Dustless looked at Kite One Origami in surprise and couldn't help but ask himself, I actually forced you to commit suicide. Am I that bad? Kite One Origami didn't speak. She just looked at Dustless coldly. Finally, she closed her eyes in despair, and the beam saber slashed at her own neck unceremoniously. If you die, I will castrate Itsuka Shido. This sentence seemed to contain supreme magic. The beam saber that was about to break her neck stopped beside her neck, and there were some bloodstains. Are you really that despicable? Kite 1 Origami stared at Dustless with deep pain. This guy's strength was 100 points, but his despicable methods were 1,000 points. You can continue to commit suicide. Shrugging, Dustless said very casually, and then walked away lazily. I promise I will castrate Itsuka Shido. You. Kite 1 Origami gritted her teeth, but she was helpless. Itsuka Shido was her most precious person. Kite 1 Origami didn't want him to be implicated. Clang. In desperation, Kite 1 Origami surrendered, threw the beam saber on the ground, and looked at Dustless with a dispirited face. I promise to help you wash your feet every day. You can't hurt Itsuka Shido. No, now I changed my mind. Suddenly turning his head to look at Kite 1 Origami, Dustless solemnly announced, bathing me is too much for you. I'm really sorry. I didn't understand that you are still an unmarried girl. I'm sorry. Dustless suddenly apologized very seriously and looked down at Kite 1 Origami. Did this guy change his personality? Kite 1 Origami, who was caught off guard, was stunned. She looked at Dustless as if she saw a ghost. She saw that his eyes were very open and sincere, and it didn't look like he was lying. So, I don't need you to wash my feet. Dustless continued, this is not suitable for a girl like you. It's too tiring. A girl in puberty should not be overworked. I am your physical education teacher. It is my duty to take care of your health. Thank you, teacher, for taking care of me. Une Origami bowed solemnly. Just as she was about to open her mouth to express her gratitude, Wu Chen's sudden words hit her hard. So, you will be responsible for my bathing tasks in the future, such as soaking in hot springs and so on. We can have some contact. Anyway, I am your physical education teacher. If you want to train your body, for example, your chest is too small, I can help you. Compared to girls like Toka, your body must be very inferior. So, in order to let you live a healthy and lively life, I have decided to sacrifice myself. Wu Chen looked at Yue Origami, who was dumbfounded, with a look of, I'm thinking for you. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2099. Tokichi Origami stared at Dustless blankly. She couldn't figure out why there was such a shameless person in the world, and he was a PE teacher. God was blind. Was this kind of scum suitable to be a teacher? Don't show such an incredible look, Origami, do you think I'm wrong? Dustless's clear eyes were dim and full of innocent grievances. I'm doing this for your sake. Puchi. The moment this sentence came out of his mouth, Tokichi Origami was so angry that she spat out her saliva. She stared at Dustless and couldn't help but be indignant. You're taking advantage of me, and you're shamelessly saying that you're doing this for my sake. Tokichi Origami was really hit by Dustless's shamelessness. It was the first time she saw such a shameless person. Do you dare to refuse? Dustless asked with a smile. You. Tokichi Origami's pretty face suddenly became angry. Why don't I dare to refuse you? Then I'm going to castrate Itsuka Shido now. Dustless turned his head and said. His words made Tokichi Origami speechless. She had to take back the words that were about to come out of her mouth. I'm willing to obey your arrangement. Resisting the discomfort in her heart, Tokichi Origami could only agree to Dustless's overbearing treaty. Dustless was going to castrate Itsuka Shido. Tokichi Origami really didn't have the courage to gamble with Dustless. Even if she knew that he might just be joking, Tokichi Origami couldn't risk Itsuka Shido's life. Ding ding ding, the bell of the last class finally spread out under the expectation of countless people. After school, the students rushed to go home. Ling Yin, you go back temporarily. I have something to do at noon today. In the sports room, Dustless said to Murasame Ling Yin. He had to go to the base of AST to help the 4 departments get back the 4 kainai. He had no time to go home with Murasame Ling Yin at noon. I understand. Murasame Rain nodded. If it was Yidao Juxiang and others, she might be worried, but in terms of the strength of Dustless, it was the other party who should be worried. Dong dong. At this moment, a dull knock on the door suddenly sounded, and the closed door was suddenly pushed open. That's strange. Shouldn't the students be going home now? Dustless frowned and shifted his gaze over. A rather unexpected figure came into view. Origami Kite? Dustless frowned as he looked at the young girl in surprise. Are you planning to humiliate yourself again? Little girl, you should give up. I really don't mean to hurt you, but with your current level, if you want to, take it. Who would have thought that Origami Kitsune would throw a doll to Dustless and then leave without saying a word? This is. Looking at the doll in his hand, Dustless was quite surprised and said to himself, isn't this the doll of the 4 series, the Sinai? She actually took the initiative to hand over the thing. This kind of thing has never happened before. Is there any conspiracy? Murasame Rain, who was more cautious, asked with full of vigilance. Was it possible to spit out what you ate? AST was not a good person. They also counted on this doll to ambush the 4 series. How could they easily hand it over? Maybe it was like this before. Dustless was not much surprised and said very seriously, but they realized the gap between me and them, so they admitted defeat and gave up their previous plan. Compared with me, all the strong are weak. Dustless finally added. These words sounded arrogant and boundless, but Murasame Rain was silent. Who let this be the truth? Let's go back. Originally, he wanted to go to AST's base to make trouble, but he didn't expect that group of girls would be so smart at the moment. They even took the initiative to send the doll of the 4 series. It seemed that they were afraid of Dustless. Inside Itsuka Shido's house. Knock knock knock. There was a burst of knocking on the door. Itsuka Kotori came in wearing slippers in a very bad mood, and she didn't forget to complain, those 2 guys really know how to enjoy themselves. There are only 2 elves and me at home. What if they go berserk? Although the probability was 0, at this moment, Toka was wolfing down the food, and as for the 4 series, they were sitting on the sofa watching TV very obediently. They looked quite harmonious. You 2 guys came back so late, did you go on a date? After opening the door, seeing Murasame Rain and Dustless together, Itsuka Kotori said in a bad mood, it's very dangerous to leave me alone at home to watch the 2 elves. Dangerous? Dustless ignored Itsuka Kotori's complaints and walked in lazily. The dangerous one is you, Itsuka-san. I'm afraid that you and Toka will steal her children's meal. Bastard. Hearing this, Itsuka Kotori was furious and looked at Dustless indignantly. That was originally mine, and you gave it to Toka without my permission in order to please her. You can't say that. Dustless walked behind Toka and gently rubbed her hair. He slowly raised his head and looked at Itsuka Kotori's beautiful eyes and said with a smile, isn't saving the elves your duty as a commander? What's the big deal about losing a children's meal? Dustless's words made Itsuka Kotori speechless. Indeed, as Dustless said, her duty was to save the elves, and a children's meal was nothing, even if Toka was already past the age of eating children's meals. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2100. Dustless completely ignored the girl's anger. He didn't even look at Itsuka Kotori. She had 2 modes. One was the terrifying, commander mode, and the other was the sister mode. Itsuka Kotori's 2 modes were completely different. Itsuka Kotori was acting like Itsundra, and it didn't make sense. You're a good girl. That's rare, but it's good that you're like this. Dustless patted the girl's head with a warm smile. Okay. When Nightblade God 10 Fragrance heard this, she immediately rubbed her forehead against Wu Chen's palm. A bright smile appeared on her small face. Wu Chen subconsciously pinched her cheek. It was extremely harmonious. Despicable fellow, he actually used my things to curry favor with 10 fragrances. Simply despicable. Itsuka Kotori stomped her feet in anger. She realized that Dustless had used her deluxe children's meal to win Toka's favor, and it had reached a terrifying 90%. Perhaps he was just one step away from completely subduing Nightblade God 10 fragrances, and even sharing a bed with her would not be a problem. Immature brat. Dustless glanced at Itsuka Kotori. She was in commander mode. She was both tsundere and sharp-tongued, so it was useless to say anything. Knock knock knock. Someone knocked on the door. Itsuka Kotori frowned and glared at Dustless. Then, she slowly opened the door. Her eyes were clearly saying, "Just wait and see." Creak. After opening the door, Itsuka Kotori's pupils constricted at the sight of the person in front of her. Shido? It was Itsuka Shido, who was expelled from the Itsuka family. That kid is here? Does he have a death wish? Dustless's eyes glowed coldly. There was a 3-point agreement. Dustless could move into the Itsuka family, but he had to expel Itsuka Shido. Now that he dared to come back, it was an indirect violation of the agreement. Thinking of this, Wu Chen's eyes were filled with murderous intent and he pounced forward like a blade. This brat is... Who exactly beat him up like this? What a pity. Why didn't you kill him? Dustless's murderous intent disappeared when he saw Itsuka Shido covered in blood and wounds. He was already half dead, so he might as well kill him. After all, he would suffer if he lived. Who did this? Itsuka Kotori's face darkened as she clenched her fists. It was the newcomer Tokasaki-san. I don't know why she attacked me. Shido was out of breath. His eyes were about to close. He was only one step away from death. Tokasaki-san? Dustless frowned. He looked at Shido and said, "That fellow can attack anyone but you. In a way, you're too important to her." Although Dustless obtained the same ability as Itoka Shido was too easy to bully. Tokasaki Kurumi would never kill him. After all, he was an important chess piece and couldn't be lost. Don't tell me you. The hatred in Itsuka Kotori's eyes disappeared as she said angrily, "You're lucky that you didn't get killed for harassing an elf. Especially that Shikisaki Kurumi you mentioned. Her codename is Nightmare, and the number of humans who died in her hands is more than 5 digits. In conclusion, Itsuka Shido was lucky to be alive. I didn't molest her." Itsuka Shido said helplessly. Tokasaki-san once said that she was an elf. I tried to save her today, but she hunted me down as soon as I touched her. Luckily, I was fast enough. Otherwise, would have been dismembered. Itsuka Shido felt wronged. He only wanted to save Tokasaki-san. Idiot. Do you really think you are fast? Can you be faster than an elf? Dustless curled his lips in disdain. Save. That was the word Tokasaki-san hated the most. Perhaps if it wasn't for Tokasaki-san's uniqueness, he would have been killed already. She just didn't want to kill you. You are of great value to Tokasaki-san. Dustless explained. Shido was only able to escape because Tokasaki-san purposely went easy on him. Otherwise, she could have easily killed him. You are still alive. The heavens must be helping you. Dustless looked at Itsuka Kotori and said. If you don't want this guy to die, send him to the hospital. Serves him right. Dustless shook his head and sighed. He should be satisfied that Tokasaki-san didn't take the initiative to find trouble with him. But now, this guy actually dared to provoke Tokasaki-san. Especially after Tokasaki-san was taught a lesson by Dustless, Tokasaki-san was already furious and depressed. Itsuka Shido was simply courting death by trying to strike up a conversation with Tokasaki-san. In Dustless's eyes, Itsuka Shido was simply courting death. Moreover, it was an extremely foolish way to die. Shido, you should go to the hospital for now. I will make that guy pay for all the harm you have suffered. Itsuka Kotori's eyes were cold, and everyone could feel an ominous hatred from her. It was clear that she wasn't joking. Itsuka Kotori respected Itsuka Shido the most. Her favorability towards him had always been 100%. Now that Itsuka Shido was injured and had a hole in his abdomen, Kotori was obviously angered. Although Tokasaki-san was an elf and was powerful, Tokasaki-san was also an elf. She wasn't afraid of Tokasaki-san. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2101. That's bad. Compared with Wu Chen, who was gloating, Murasame Rain was particularly anxious. Her small hands subconsciously clenched tightly, and her eyes staring at Itsuka Kotori were full of caution. I hope there will be no big problem. Murasame Rain prayed secretly. She sincerely hoped that there would be no violent scene. Shido's significance to Kotori was extraordinary, and it was not as simple as a simple brother. Kotori's favorability to Shido had always been 100%. Now that Shido was attacked and almost lost his life, Kotori would inevitably be furious and turn into an elf. However, as the saying goes, good things don't come true, but bad things come true. Sometimes, the more one hoped not to happen, the faster it came. Boom boom boom. On Kotori's skin, there was a burst of energy fluctuation visible to the naked eye, showing a fiery red color, like a blazing flame, terrifying and scorching. Damned incubus, I won't let you go so easily. Itsuka Kotori clenched her fists and swore. This terrifying flame ripple, with Kotori's anger, and even the range gradually increased, and it was about to burn Murasame Rain. Oh no. Seeing the heat wave rushing toward her, Murasame Rain turned around and ran, but it was too late. She had been secretly contacting Ratatosk to ask about the data of Kotori's emotions, but at this time, Kotori suddenly exploded. Am I going to die? Turning her head and looking at the energy flame, Murasame Rain smiled bitterly. The sofa touched by the flame was burned into nothingness in an instant. She was afraid that she was not much better. Even if she didn't die, her life was over. Buzz buzz buzz. However, at this time, in the darkest period of Murasame Rain's life, a fierce gravitational force suddenly came, tightly circling around Murasame Rain, so that she couldn't move, and then flew out in an instant. Wanxiang Tianyu. The majestic gravitational force covered Murasame Rain, and in front of the powerful gravitational force, she had no power to resist and fell into a warm embrace. It's you? Turning her head, she saw Dustless looking at her gratefully. Murasame Rain's eyes were full of sincere gratitude. You were too careless. Faintly glancing at Murasame Rain, Dustless said softly, although some data is important, it is not worth mentioning compared with life, understand? Hearing this, Murasame Rain's cheeks froze, and she nodded embarrassedly. Sorry, I was careless just now. The commander's psychic wave broke out in a straight line. If it is not handled well, it will lead to a disaster. This was not that Murasame Ling Indo was worried, but every elf was so dangerous, at least for humans, they could easily take away the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. There is one more thing. His sight fell on Murasame Rain's cheek. Dustless looked at her seriously. Is there anything else? Murasame Rain heard the words, and her sight was also cast over. She looked at Dustless with some curiosity. Although this guy was very indifferent, the questions he raised often hit the nail on the head. Can you move away from me now? Dustless said abruptly. At this moment, Murasame Rain was completely lying on his body, and she was quite uncomfortable. Murasame Rain's mouth twitched a few times, and then she realized that she was almost lying in Dustless's arms, and the posture was extremely ambiguous. Sorry, I have been thinking about the commander, so, in short, I am sorry, I will pay attention to this kind of thing in the future. Murasame Rain's face was red and hot, and she was extremely embarrassed to leave Dustless's body. It's okay. Dustless said indifferently, and he didn't care about anything. Well, there is something I want to discuss with your excellency. Looking at Dustless nervously, unconsciously, Mirasame Rain also used a kind of honorific when talking to Dustless. This slight change was not even noticed by Mirasame Rain herself. Say it. Dustless was just a simple word. This bastard always uses short words every time he speaks. Does he really think he has a golden mouth? Mirasame Rain's eyes twitched a few times, and she looked at Dustless with a bit of resentment. I want to bother you with one thing. Taking a deep breath, Mirasame Rain said seriously, one day in the future, if the commander goes berserk and can't suppress the power in his body, I hope you can help him. According to the analysis of the data I got from Ratatosk, your body data is exactly the same as the little boy's, and you are likely to have exactly the same data, so please, be sure to help at the critical moment. The meaning of Mirasame Rain's words was very simple. If Itsuka Kotori went berserk, Dustless must go on a date with her. He must win her favor, and it was better to seal the power of Itsuka Kotori. No problem. Without blinking his eyes, Dustless was unexpectedly easy to talk to. Are you? Mirasame Rain looked at Dustless with her eyes stunned. Mirasame Rain didn't expect Dustless to agree so quickly and easily. That Dustless, Kun. Pursing her dry lips, Mirasame Ling-een was moved. When she was about to thank him, Wuchen's sudden words made her head roar. She staggered and couldn't stabilize her body. She fell to the ground with a plop. Don't worry, I promised to beat Itsuka Kotori, and beat her to submission. Staring at Itsuka Kotori, Dustless's eyes glowed with bright light, and finally added, what date, it's better to die, just like the Night Sword God Toka, force her to be obedient by force. Really, thanks to this little girl who went berserk, I found a rare good toy, don't let me down. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2102. Beat? After hearing Dustless's words, Mirasame Rain's head was ringing, and her whole person was petrified, staring at Dustless who was beaming with joy. If someone else said that he wanted to beat Kotori, Mirasame Rain would definitely laugh at him for overestimating himself, but if it was Dustless, she couldn't help but worry about Kotori. What if her commander was crippled by this cruel brat? You don't have to thank me. Seeing Mirasame Rain's eyes staring at him, Dustless slowly said, don't worry, I have enough strength. Now let's deal with this arrogant girl first. Dustless's eyes jumped with unknown brilliance, and his whole sight was cast on Kotori's head, and his eyes were also twisted in an instant. The blood-red pentagonal Mangekyo Sharingan radiated a strange light. What eyes are these? Mirasame Rain's heart trembled, and her whole body was cold. Dustless's strange eyes made her feel an unprecedented depression. Don't mess around. Seeing that Wu Chen was staring at Itsuka Kotori, Mirasame Rain reminded him submissively, but she regretted it as soon as her voice fell. If I want to mess around, you have already been destroyed. Glancing at Mirasame Rain lightly, Dustless's tone was like ice, as cold as it could be. Gulp. Mirasame Rain choked, looking at Dustless's blood-red eyes. She sincerely felt that she was fragile and small, and being stared at by those unknown eyes, her secrets couldn't be hidden. Rain, report all the information of Nightmare to me. Kotori's tone was heavier, and her gorgeous eyes were dotted with visible flames. I'm afraid this won't work. A simple sentence suddenly sounded, questioning Itsuka Kotori's decision. The atmosphere seemed to have frozen, and even breathing became difficult for some reason. Looking up, the person who spoke was Dustless. Mirasame Rain's heart jumped to her throat. At this time, this guy still wants to fight with the commander, isn't he looking for death? Itsuka Shido's injury indirectly touched Itsuka Kotori's bottom line. This usually arrogant commander was already on the verge of exploding. It was too late to extinguish her anger, but Dustless threw a match and completely ignited the powder keg that was about to explode. If this wasn't adding fuel to the fire, then what was? What did you say? I dare you to repeat it again. Kotori suddenly turned back and looked at Dustless without blinking, a dangerous light brewed in her eyes. My business, you are not qualified to interfere, shut your mouth. When a person loses control of their emotions, they would become irritable. No one was an exception, including Itsuka Kotori. You are right, your business, I am not qualified to interfere. Dustless smiled slightly, then immediately mocked, but my mouth is on my body, this is my business, let me ask you, are you qualified to interfere? Boom boom. Not long after these words, the hidden psychic wave in Kotori's body was like a raging flood, exploding uncontrollably. Boom boom. The dark red psychic wave was more terrifying than the materialized flames, instantly annihilating everything that came in contact with it, such as the sofa and the chair, almost evaporated in the blink of an eye. Kakaka. The spiritual waves crashed against the walls, and the entire house began to shake. The fire attribute of the spiritual waves burned the walls into a charred black color. It was a terrible sight to behold, and suffocating black smoke rose everywhere. If Dustless didn't set up a barrier to prevent outsiders from spying on the situation in Kotori's house, someone would have probably called the police. This is none of your business, don't interfere, even if you are an elf, I will still beat you up. Kotori gritted her teeth, and her powerful tone showed that she was really angry. Don't think too highly of yourself, I am not interested in your business. Dustless said casually, didn't I say before, Kotori's house was expropriated, and now it is my house. You dare to set fire in my house, you are quite brave, if it wasn't for the fact that we know each other, little girl, you would have been cut into pieces by now. This guy, sigh, can't he be a little gentlemanly? Commander won't die if he gives in. Seeing Dustless and Kotori going against each other, Murasame Rain didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Dustless's reaction was obviously that he wanted Kotori to challenge him, and he even deliberately angered Kotori. You forced me to do this. Hearing this, Kotori was furious, and her whole body suddenly emitted a bright luster, and the whole person seemed to be in a huge light cocoon, and turned into a huge light cluster, emitting a holy light. Oh no, that's Commander's spiritual equipment. Murasame Rain's eyes widened, and she looked at Dustless with some complaints. I want you to use the most peaceful way to calm the Commander's fire, but your behavior is playing with your life. It's peaceful enough, she is still breathing. Dustless said indifferently, if you know my past, you should feel relieved now. You. Murasame Rain almost vomited blood because of Dustless's words. Dustless's words were full of contempt for the elves, and he didn't even care about them at all, as if he had slaughtered a large number of elves in the past. Boom. A powerful impact burst out, and the energy cocoon on Kotori's body also disappeared. At this moment, the girl's posture was completely different from before, and a pair of cold eyes stared at Dustless. Itsuka Kotori was wearing a light pink dress. When the wind blew, the edges of her dress fluttered, revealing a pair of perfect white legs. It was as if the heavens had used all their strength to carve them. There was not a single flaw to be found. Due to the girl's explosive power, it was like a storm. The long dress was blown up high. Wu Chen's sharp eyes could even see fat too. The girl's breasts were half exposed, and there was a piece of silk tied around her waist. She was holding a dangerous weapon, and her eyes were full of murderous intent. Clap. 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 Under such a solemn environment, Dustless actually clapped his hands. Moreover, he even gave a thumbs up vigorously, praising him greatly. There are horns on her head? Staring at the transparent horns on both sides of Kotori's forehead, Dustless's words made Kotori furious, and even Murasame Rain was afraid to stay away from Dustless. Little girl, are you the reincarnation of the Bull Demon King? Chapter 2103. Boom. Boom. Waves of heat spread out from Itsuka Kotori's body. The scorching light was like a storm, and the heat waves swept through the entire barrier space. Due to the high temperature, the sky within the barrier had turned into a fiery red color, and a terrifying amount of heat filled the air. The little girl is so young, but her outburst is quite terrifying. Her strength is barely not bad. Wu Chen nodded secretly. The power of this elf really could not be underestimated. Back off now, and I can pretend that nothing happened. Itsuka Kotori was quite arrogant. She looked around the barrier and frowned. Wait for me to get angry, and the consequences won't be something you can bear. Dustless didn't say anything, but his face was very strange. Being threatened by a beautiful girl, this feeling was very strange. Idiot, don't anger the commander. Murasame Rain quickly got close to Dustless and said nervously, if you continue to be arrogant, you will only make the commander angry. At that time, the battle between the two elves may destroy this city. The life and death of others has nothing to do with me. Dustless looked at Murasame Rain and said coldly, if she doesn't get angry, how can I continue to play? Brat, if you can make me retreat, no, if you can make me retreat one step, then you win. Not only will I let you go, but I will also help you catch Tokisaki Kurumi. How about it? Pay for your stupidity. Itsuka Kotori couldn't take it anymore and charged forward, thrusting out her divine weapon. Itsuka Kotori originally wanted Wuchen to make a detour so that she wouldn't get in the way of Tokisaki Kurumi. However, who would have thought that this brat would be so arrogant? It was obvious that he was trying to provoke her. Whoosh! The sharp sound of breaking through the air came head-on. Even if the rushing edge hadn't approached Dustless yet, his skin was inevitably stung. Such a violent little girl, and an elf, it will be hard for her to get married. Dustless faintly smiled and sighed. None of your business. Hearing that, Itsuka Kotori's mouth twitched a few times, and she increased the amount of spiritual waves in her body, and the chilling light on her axe became even more obvious. Buzz buzz buzz. Dustless did not show any weakness. His right hand trembled slightly, and like a black hole, it engulfed a large number of photons in the vacuum. Then, a shining divine sword was instantly compressed and formed. What a unique weapon. Staring at the photon sword in Dustless's hand, Murasame Rain's eyes lit up. She quickly picked up a notebook and hurriedly wrote something. It seemed that she was recording Dustless's data. What's the use of that? I can shatter it with a light stab. Itsuka Kotori chuckled in disdain and unleashed her full power. Clang, clang, clang. Sparks flew everywhere as the two weapons clashed. The immense force caused Itsuka Kotori's face to pale, and she was forced back a few steps as her arms trembled uncontrollably. Why is the force so strong? She stared at Dustless with her eyes wide open. Itsuka Kotori's mind went blank. This was the first time in her life that she made a mistake. Her hands were numb from the shock, and the blue veins on her wrists were clearly visible. That's it? Dustless said in a contemptuous tone, weak little girl, it's hard for me to get serious. Humph. Hearing that, Itsuka Kotori snorted coldly, and her body trembled slightly, and then a dazzling light appeared. Buzz buzz buzz, the fiery heat wave exploded again. Different from before, this time all the spiritual waves rushed into the axe. The surface of the axe suddenly lit up, and the fiery red light was filled with a dangerous halo of destruction. Itsuka Kotori's spiritual waves poured into the axe, and the two sides of the axe became more and more dazzling. There were even flames coming out of the axe. Dustless looked at Itsuka Kotori quietly. She was like a fire fairy, and she could control the fire element at will. Boom boom boom. The axe had reached a state of energy saturation, and a huge beam of light shot out and rushed toward Dustless. The huge sound made people's eardrums hurt. Dustless looked up and aimed at the beam of light with his right hand, and a golden energy ball appeared at the tip of his thumb. Buzz buzz buzz, he increased the spiritual pressure in his body, and the energy ball gradually became bigger until it was the size of a fist. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. As if thinking of something, Dustless frowned and turned the energy in his body. The energy ball shrunk again, and most of the energy was recovered. Finally, Dustless's gaze froze, and he casually looked at the incoming beam of light. He flicked his finger and rushed over. Boom boom boom. The two opposing forces collided, and the void exploded, and a terrifying shockwave spread in all directions. Caw caw caw. The transparent barrier clearly couldn't withstand this powerful force, and after being attacked by the remaining energy, it was covered in cracks. Bang! The transparent barrier couldn't withstand wave after wave of energy attacks, and it shattered like a mirror. Fortunately, the barrier withstood 95% of the energy attacks, and when the barrier shattered, the shocking energy waves disappeared with the wind. The only thing worth mentioning was that Itsuka Kotori's house was razed to the ground. Seriously, even though the power of Void Flash was weakened, it still caused a huge commotion in the end. Dustless shook his head, indicating that he had already weakened the power of Void Flash, but it still caused a huge commotion. "You bastard, I won't let you go so easily, never." On the other side, Itsuka Kotori's angry voice sounded. She bared her teeth and looked like she wanted to bite Dustless to death. Haha. Dustless looked over and saw Itsuka Kotori's sorry state, and he couldn't help but laugh. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 gifts plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2104. Looking at her, Itsuka Kotori, who was arrogant a moment ago, was now embarrassed. There was a layer of dirt on her face was black, and even her clothes were burnt. Her skin was exposed to the air, and when the wind blew, some parts of her body were exposed. Ouch! Itsuka Kotori screamed, her face flushed red. She glared at Dustless and scolded, "Bastard, I won't let you off so easily. You better cut your stomach to atone for your sins." "Cut my belly?" "Sorry, I'm a person who is very afraid of pain, and due to some special reasons, I have an immortal body." Dustless shrugged and said perfunctorily. "Wait for me, I'll cut you into pieces." Itsuka Kotori said fiercely. "Then continue." Dustless hooked his finger and provoked, "Is this all you're, an angel? You're no different from a vulnerable human. You." Itsuka Kotori gritted her teeth in anger, but she couldn't say anything. Recalling the previous battle experience, she was really vulnerable to Dustless. "Commander, put on your clothes first." Murasame Rain rolled her eyes at Wu Chen and quickly handed her coat to Itsuka Kotori. Only then could the girl's exposed body be covered. "Do you have any gentlemanly demeanor? How dare you hit such a beautiful girl like me?" Itsuka Kotori put on her clothes while cursing Dustless. "People like you should go to hell." "That's good." Murasame Rain looked at Itsuka Kotori calmly. Dustless suddenly scolded Itsuka Kotori. She was like a deflated balloon, and her anger disappeared. "Fix the house, I want to sleep." Hearing that, Dustless just glanced at the two as if nothing happened, and then leisurely turned around and left. "I'm going to buy a cup of Coke." Under the sunlight, Dustless's figure gradually elongated, and soon disappeared from their sight. "This guy is too despicable." Itsuka Kotori was so angry that she stomped her feet. Looking at the ruins of Itsuka Kotori's house, she wanted to cry but had no tears. She cursed, "Dustless, this be **starred, raised my house to the ground and asked me to rebuild it. How can he be in the mood to drink Coke? He doesn't even have the slightest remorse. Repent?" Murasame Ling-in listened to the cold sweat and couldn't help but complain. "Didn't you hear what he said? He tried his best to suppress his strength just now." In front of the vending machine on the other side, Dustless had just inserted a coin when a can of Coke fell out. "That violent girl seems pretty strong." After opening the can of cola, Dustless casually found a place to sit down and muttered to himself, "The elf's abilities are not bad. That starter elf should be more fun. It's really fun." At this moment, a seductive voice sounded. The tone was very seductive and moving. It was like taking drugs, and people couldn't help but look over. "It's you." Dustless glanced at the girl who slowly walked over and said lightly, "Are you here to challenge me? Did you forget the lesson from last time so quickly?" The uninvited girl was Tokasaki Kurumi. "Hey, you can't say that. I think we can walk together." Tokasaki Kurumi sat beside Dustless and chuckled. "At least for now, it seems like we have the same goal. I'm not interested in children's fights." Dustless didn't even look at Tokasaki Kurumi as he casually said, You elves are just an existence to relieve boredom in my eyes. As for the goal, it's just your wishful thinking. He didn't want elves, so what goal did he have? Cold and arrogant as always. Tokasaki Kurumi wasn't angry. Instead, she moved closer to Dustless's ear and whispered a long string of words. We can work together to find the starter elf. Then, you or I can kill her. Tokasaki Kurumi's eyes flickered with a dangerous light. Her tone was sinister and didn't seem like she was speaking casually. You want to use me? Dustless frowned at Tokasaki Kurumi as he coldly said, help you kill the starter elf, and your dream will be fulfilled. The other elves will also disappear. Tokasaki Kurumi's expression froze. She looked at Dustless in surprise and said strangely, don't all humans want elves to disappear? Don't compare me to those mortals. Dustless continued to leisurely drink his cola and said, they're just elves. I've seen all kinds of monsters. Do you think elves are special? In my eyes, they're just ordinary people with superpowers. If the elves were monsters and heretics, then Dustless could be called the Great Demon King. After all, he was the Ten Tails. The elves were nothing compared to him. Tokasaki Kurumi stared at Dustless in astonishment. She didn't know why, but she felt a warm current in her heart. She carefully looked at Dustless's handsome and serious face. His magnanimous tone didn't seem like he was lying, nor was there a need to. You're not that annoying. Tokasaki Kurumi looked at Dustless seriously for the first time. For the first time, she felt that the man in front of her wasn't that annoying. Elves had always been the enemy of the world. This was the first time she was recognized by an outsider. It was a strange feeling, but she didn't hate it. However, Dustless's next sentence made Tokasaki Kurumi fly into a rage. But, you're annoying. You're like a shadow that won't go away. You're not allowed to follow me anymore. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2105. Tokasaki Kurumi was so angry that she felt dizzy. She pointed at Dustless with a trembling finger. This bastard didn't know how many people were fawning over her every day, but this bastard showed a look of disdain. Especially when he looked like he had eaten a fly, it made Tokasaki Kurumi want to vomit blood. Remember this clearly, goodbye. After throwing the can into the trash can, Wuchen turned around and walked away. Only Tokasaki Kurumi was left on the bench with her eyes wide open. Tokasaki Kurumi stared at Dustless's back. She couldn't help but feel a little stuffy. She subconsciously touched her face and her curvy figure and muttered to herself, am I so unattractive that this bastard isn't interested in me at all? Tokasaki Kurumi looked at Dustless unwillingly. She gritted her teeth and chased after him. Oh, I remember you asked me to be your maid last time, right? Tokasaki Kurumi stopped in front of Dustless and bowed elegantly to Dustless. Yes, I did. Dustless looked down at Tokasaki Kurumi, who was a head shorter than him, and laughed. Are you going to change your mind now? Change my mind? Tokasaki Kurumi laughed and didn't say anything. She treated it as a joke that went in one ear and out the other. Why don't I tease you a little so you don't have to be so cocky? Tokasaki Kurumi rolled her eyes and a cunning look flashed in her eyes. You want me to be your maid? Although the request is unreasonable, it's not impossible. Tokasaki Kurumi looked at Dustless with a smile. No one knew what she was thinking. Dustless didn't move. He looked at Tokasaki Kurumi silently, as if waiting for her to say something. Actually, the request is very simple. All you need to do is to pay a small price, Tokasaki Kurumi said with a hidden meaning. Price? Dustless looked at Tokasaki Kurumi with interest and didn't refuse. Tell me about it. As long as you, giving Dustless a playful look, Tokasaki Kurumi laughed. As long as you wash my feet 10 times, I'll agree to your conditions. In all fairness, Tokasaki Kurumi's conditions weren't harsh. On the contrary, they were ordinary, and there wasn't any unreasonable request. The reason why he asked Dustless to wash his feet was because he felt that Dustless was too arrogant and needed to be suppressed. This condition is very easy to fulfill. It's very simple, and even very considerate. Anyone can easily fulfill it. Dustless spoke softly, without any ripples in his tone. Shouldn't you be happy? Tokisaki Kurumi was speechless. This guy was as clueless as a rock. So do you agree or not? As soon as he finished speaking, Tokisaki Kurumi stared at Wu Chen without blinking. She was quite confident in her looks. Tokisaki Kurumi's face was filled with smiles. From her point of view, Wu Chen should have immediately agreed to her request. To be able to obtain such a beautiful maid, he should be so happy that he couldn't even find his bearings. Let me think. Dustless didn't say much. He only replied with 3 words, then lowered his head to think about something. Bastard, I gave you such a generous condition, and you still dare to think about it? Tokisaki Kurumi almost went crazy. Dustless's hesitant expression was clearly saying that she was at a disadvantage. Even if she gave him an inch, he should know when to stop. After thinking about it for a long time, I finally understood. After a long while, Dustless finally took a deep breath. He looked at Tokisaki Kurumi seriously with a faint smile on his face. He seemed to be very satisfied with his idea. At least you know what's good for you. Tokisaki Kurumi breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, she didn't choose to be Dustless's maid on a whim. She had thought it through carefully. Tokisaki Kurumi's goal was to kill the first elf. However, it was too difficult for her to do it alone. After witnessing Dustless's terrifying strength, she knew that if she and Dustless worked together, the first elf would die without a doubt. Secondly, she had suffered a lot in front of Dustless. She still wanted to take revenge on Dustless, but it was impossible in terms of strength. After all, she had witnessed how terrifying and heaven-defying Dustless was. Therefore, she could only take action in other ways. Letting Dustless wash her feet was a way to make up for her broken pride. I suddenly changed my mind. Previously, you only needed to agree to my conditions. Now, the conditions have changed. Dustless suddenly said. Changed? Tokisaki Kurumi was stunned. Of course it has changed. You have to wash my feet 10 times before I agree to be your maid. It's the kind of job that lasts a lifetime. I'll do anything you want me to do. As she spoke, Tokisaki Kurumi even licked her lips seductively. You misunderstood me. Lightly glancing at Shirasaki Kurumi, Wuchen slowly said, in the past, you only needed to agree to be my maid, but now what? Tokisaki Kurumi's mouth twitched a few times as she looked at Dustless's naughty smile. She felt a deep sense of unease. You have to call me daddy 100 times before I agree. Dustless rolled his eyes and said seriously. You bastard. Tokisaki Kurumi's face was filled with rage. A vintage gun appeared in her hand. Bang! 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 Without even thinking, a series of dense bullets were fired out. Poochie! Poochie! A few huge holes appeared in Dustless's head in the blink of an eye. Even his eyes were pierced. But in the next second, they were repaired by the glint fruit. This bastard, I must kill him. I'm so angry. Tokisaki Kurumi's lungs were about to explode. Helping a beauty wash her feet 10 times could make her a maid for a lifetime. This was a free lunch that fell from the sky. But Dustless, this bastard, not only did he not agree, he even wanted her to call him daddy 100 times before agreeing to be his maid. Could he be any more despicable? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 auto subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2106. You. Don't push your luck. After wasting half a day, Tokisaki Kurumi finally managed to squeeze out such a sentence. Her watery eyes glared at Dustless. The anger in her eyes could be clearly seen, but she sounded a little timid. She couldn't win in a fight or a verbal battle, so she naturally lacked confidence. I'm pushing my luck. What can you do about it? Dustless retorted indifferently and coldly said, It's your fortune that I've taken a fancy to you. Since you don't know what's good for you, I won't play with you anymore. Goodbye. As his voice faded, Dustless leisurely turned around and left. Despicable guy. I won't let you off so easily. Focusing on Dustless's back, Tokisaki Kurumi stomped her feet in anger and pouted her lips. She was fuming with anger because of Dustless. Her thoughts and memories flowed back like the tide. Thinking back, Tokisaki Kurumi realized that she had never suffered such a huge loss since her debut. Only when she met Dustless did she feel as if she had swallowed a fly. What an overconfident little girl. She actually dared to ask me to wash her feet. She's quite ambitious. Along the way, Dustless seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll as he walked very slowly. Since Itsuka's house had been destroyed, he would definitely have no place to stay when he returned. Boom! 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 A deafening explosion tore through the sky as a violent shockwave blew towards him. Dustless's hair was blown to one side. The relatively cool atmosphere suddenly became a lot hotter. Dustless squinted his eyes and carefully sensed it. This scorching energy seems to belong to Itsuka Kotori. Who's fighting with her again? Dustless was dumbfounded. He was really puzzled. He was sure that this was Itsuka Kotori's energy. He had just fought with her, so he was quite familiar with this energy fluctuation. Interesting. How long has it been? She just fought with me, and now she's changed opponents. This arrogant girl really can't be looked at with ordinary eyes. Out of curiosity, Dustless sped towards the center. Boom boom boom. The closer they got, the clearer the ear-piercing rumbling sounds became. Looking up, they saw two figures fighting in the sky, engaging in a life-and-death battle. Balrog, I must kill you today and avenge my parents. The silver-haired girl glared at Itsuka Kotori. When she mentioned her parents, her eyes were filled with coldness. Swish. 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 The equipment that the white-haired girl was wearing provided her with great power. She quickly flew towards Itsuka Kotori with the laser sword in her hand raised high. That's ridiculous. Itsuka Kotori furrowed her brows and flew out without showing any signs of weakness. If we continue fighting like this, it's only a matter of time before something happens. Murasame Rain was secretly anxious, looking at the two people who were fighting fiercely. She sincerely felt that something was wrong. I sensed that one of them was Itsuka Kotori. I thought it was another elf, but it turned out to be this little girl. Dustless walked slowly, looking at the two women fighting in the sky, and smiled. It turned out to be Tabichi Origami. The person who was shouting for revenge was one of the members of AST, Tabichi Origami. It was estimated that the previous fight between Dustless and Itsuka Kotori attracted her. After all, it was too noisy. Seeing Dustless coming, Murasame Rain's eyes lit up and said anxiously, The task of ending this battle is handed to you. If it continues, the commander may completely go berserk. It's none of my business. Dustless responded very rudely and said coldly, What, you treat me as a full-time babysitter? Where the fire is, I will go there to put out the fire. There is a reward. Cursing Dustless thousands of times in her heart, Murasame Rain could only take a step back helplessly. Not interested, I'm not a greedy person, and you don't have anything worthy of me. Without looking at Murasame Rain, Dustless answered calmly. You. Murasame Rain felt a headache and could only say in a pleading tone, Every time the commander transforms into an elf, she can't completely control this power and lose her mind. You don't want her to become a killing machine. Of course, you can ignore the life and death of others, but you don't want the commander to destroy this city, no, your planet, right? Dustless was slightly stunned, silently stared at Murasame Rain for a long time, and rarely praised. This reason is very good, and it really moved me. Doing things on my territory without my permission is ignoring my authority. This man's temper is really weird. Murasame Rain didn't know whether to laugh or cry. For Dustless, this kind of strange and unpredictable person, he didn't play according to common sense every time. But fortunately, since Dustless agreed to make a move, it indicated that this battle had already ended here. Go to hell. Itsuka Kotori gradually became angry and suddenly waved the huge axe. Boom. It seemed to be a casual blow, but compared with before, the power was several times stronger, and Tabichi Origami was blown away without any effort. The power is so strong. Tabichi Origami kept retreating, her face changed greatly, and she barely stabilized her body after retreating for more than 10 meters. She held the laser sword with trembling hands, and her arms couldn't help shaking. This casual blow almost broke the will of Tabichi Origami. If it was other AST members, they may have been directly shocked to death by the powerful force. The game ends here. Itsuka Kotori's eyes were full of raging killing intent, filled with the breath of death. Even if it was a hot summer, being stared at by the horrible red eyes, Tabichi Origami was numb, and her back was cold. Boom. The shape of the giant axe held by Itsuka Kotori suddenly changed, and the huge axe on both sides shrank and became a strange shape similar to an iron pillar. With the increase of the spiritual power output of Itsuka Kotori, the iron pillar glowed with dangerous dark red light, surrounded by high-density golden flames, and burned red. Go to hell. Pointing the weapon coldly at the dazed Tabichi Origami, the thick flame erupted in a beam. The speed was extremely fast, there was no time to dodge, and Tabichi Origami was about to be melted. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2107. Go to hell. He pointed his weapon at the dazed Toichi Origami, and a thick flame erupted in the form of a light beam. It was so fast that Toichi Origami didn't even have time to dodge. Am I going to die here? I can't accept this. I didn't even get to avenge my parents. Origami Kitsune bitterly smiled, looking very bleak. Looking at the huge ray of light coming towards her, her delicate little face was covered with a layer of beautiful despair. She couldn't avenge her parents, but she was still killed by the enemy. In desperation, Kitaichi Origami calmly closed her eyes and waited for her death. Buzz. It was also at this moment that an inexplicable throbbing came from the horizon. The void in front of Kitaichi Origami suddenly rippled like the surface of the water. What's going on? Itsuka Kotori opened her eyes wide, and her red eyes were full of shock. At this moment, she, who was in her elf form, seemed to have returned to consciousness. Kakaka, accompanied by a violent sound, a huge black hole appeared in the space in front of Koichi Origami. What is this? A hole? Tokichi Origami, who had her eyes closed, suddenly opened her eyes and stared at the black hole in front of her. Her small face was filled with shock. Is this to save me? Could it be Shurdao? Thinking of this, Toichi Origami's heart was full of sweetness. The only person in this world who really cares about her is Shido. This is not a hole, it's my ninjutsu, Kamui, and I'm not Shido. I'm sorry if I disappoint you. An extremely discordant voice came. Uni Origami suddenly stopped and looked towards the source of the voice. Dustless stepped on the air and came over with a calm face. Shido is not here, the person you hate the most, I'm here. Dustless pointed to his nose and introduced with a smile. Pucci. At the same time, the black hole that had exploded was like an endless black hole. It swallowed the incoming light beam in an instant. It was no different from a stone falling into the sea. There was no further movement. That's it? Seeing this, Itsuka Kotori stared at Dustless angrily and said, Don't be nosy, this is between me and her. I don't want to be nosy. Dustless looked at Itsuka Kotori and said slowly, But, I said before, this planet is my territory, did I allow you to fight? You. These words not only angered Itsuka Kotori, but Toichi Origami also frowned. This is too arrogant. However, recalling that it was Wu Chen who saved her, Yuani took back the words that were about to come out of her mouth. You what? If you don't agree or want to change my rules, then come at me. Looking at Itsuka Kotori's face, Wu Chen's tone was filled with disdain. Itsuka Kotori is too weak. Boom boom boom. Itsuka Kotori was clearly angered by Dustless's words. The golden flames around her lit up again, and they were even stronger than before. It was as if they were going to burn through the sky. Her body kept spitting out flames, and she was surrounded by a golden fireball. Gulp. Even Kitsune Origami felt a chill run down her spine, and her eyes were filled with fear. Humph. Seeing this, Dustless snorted coldly, his black pupils were swallowed by the red Sharingan, and the three Tomo eyes slowly rotated. Sleep for a while. Dustless glanced at Itsuka Kotori's body, then he didn't look at her anymore. Don't look down on people, losing once doesn't mean you will lose twice. Seeing that Dustless ignored her, Itsuka Kotori snorted and rushed toward him. Be careful, she's coming. It was rare for Origami Kitsune to remind Dustless. Her eyes were full of fear. After this battle, she had already understood the huge gap between ordinary humans and elves. Plop. However, before Itsuka Kotori could fly for long, her eyes suddenly rolled back, and she fell to the ground under the gaze of Toichi Origami. What did you do to me? Itsuka Kotori looked at Dustless with difficulty, and she tried to stand up again, but to her surprise, the energy in her body was drained by some mysterious force, and she could only glare at Dustless. Despicable, fight me if you have the guts. Itsuka Kotori was so angry that she gritted her teeth, and she cursed Dustless for using such a despicable method to win. That's it? Toichi Origami's mouth twitched. Such a powerful elf was knocked out by Dustless with a single glance, and he didn't even do anything. This was too ridiculous. She was like an extra in a movie, and as long as the plot was right, she could be killed at any time. You want to fight me with just you? Dustless looked at Itsuka Kotori with pity and sighed. You can't even block my illusion, and it's the simplest kind, and you want to fight me? Kotori, there's a limit to your overestimation, or you will become a laughingstock. Elves were powerful, but they weren't a threat to Dustless at all. They were in two completely different realms. No matter how strong a child was, they could only be beaten up by airplanes and cannons. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 tips plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 auto-subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2108. So powerful, he killed the elf in an instant. Tabichi Origami's eyes were as bright as the stars. Even though she was a simple-minded person, she was looking at Dustless with admiration. He had only taken a casual glance at the fairy, and Itsuka Kotori found it extremely difficult to even stand up. Who else could do such a thing? Balrog, today is the day you die. Calming herself down, Tabichi Origami glared at Itsuka Kotori with hatred. She held a laser sword in her hand and walked over with a cold expression. The killing intent on her face was no joke. After all, because of Itsuka Kotori, her parents were burned to death. Their faces were unrecognizable, and not even their corpses were left behind. It was understandable that Tabichi Origami hated Itsuka Kotori. No one would be able to tolerate such a thing. In fact, if Dustless encountered the same fate as Origami Kite, he would have already chopped his enemies into pieces and ground their bones into ashes. I killed your parents? Hearing this, Itsuka Kotori also stared blankly at Tabichi Origami, who was glaring at her with hatred. Clearly, she wasn't faking it. Even though Itsuka Kotori's memories of the past were blurry, she knew that she had done something terrible 5 years ago. She just couldn't recall it. Die. Swish. Swish. Recalling the tragic state of her parents, she swung the blade mercilessly at Kotori's head. Her head was about to be sliced open. 10,000 mammoth heavenly attraction. At this critical moment, there was a sudden suction force from behind. The majestic force forcefully pulled Toichi Origami away, and even his blade was sucked over. Plop. Being caught off guard, Yuichi Origami fell into Dustless's arms. Her body suddenly trembled, and a strange electric current flashed through her body. Her body suddenly became soft, and she didn't even have the strength to take revenge. Yuichi Origami, who had never had intimate contact with the opposite sex, suddenly blushed. She was quite cute, and the speed of her breathing became several times faster. It smells so good. I remember his name is Dustless. Is he really a man? Looking up at Dustless, Yueni Origami was also stunned for a while. It was the first time she met a man with such a fragrance. Brat, have you seen enough? Dustless glanced at her coldly. His simple words made Origami Kitsune shiver. Her small face was extremely embarrassed, and she quickly began to struggle. Why don't you let me go? Slow idiot, said Zhang Zian. Dustless just snorted in disdain. I didn't hug you at all. You threw yourself into my arms. You. Hearing this, Yuichi Origami's little face became even more embarrassed. She glanced at Dustless in annoyance and then flew backward, withdrawing from Dustless's arms as fast as she could. Why did you stop me from taking revenge? Yuichi Origami Kitsune looked at Dustless with anger brewing in her eyes. She pointed at Itsuka Kotori and shouted angrily. She killed my parents. Dustless didn't say anything. In fact, he didn't refute. The death of parents was a blood feud, and no one could tolerate such a thing. But the premise was that Yuichi Origami's parents must be Itsuka Kotori. But the truth was not so. As a transmigrator, Dustless knew the truth of the past. Your parents. Carefully looking at Yuichi Origami Kitsune's face, Dustless remembered the truth of the past. He shook his head and said slowly. Kotori didn't kill them. I still remember the scene of the past. It's useless even if you want to clear her name now. Yuichi Origami Kitsune moved her lips and looked at Dustless expressionlessly. Seeing this, Dustless frowned slightly. Actually, the real murderer is, just as he was about to say the real murderer, Dustless suddenly closed his mouth and told the truth. The blow to Yuichi Origami Kitsune was too cruel. She probably couldn't accept such a cruel blow. In fact, the real murderer of Yuichi Origami Kitsune's parents wasn't Itsuka Kotori, but Yuichi Origami Kitsune herself. But this kind of thing couldn't be explained clearly. It was too shocking for Yuichi Origami Kitsune, and she might even have a mental breakdown. Besides, Dustless didn't have any evidence that could convince Yuichi Origami Kitsune. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. This is the undeniable truth, and I have no reason to lie to you. Dustless said calmly. Then, he changed the topic and said with a smile. Besides, who told you that your parents are dead? You're going off topic. It's no different from talking nonsense. Yuichi Origami Kitsune glared at Dustless. Her good impression of him disappeared instantly. This guy is getting better at talking nonsense. How could she remember this kind of thing wrongly? The scene of her parents being burned to death was still vivid in her mind. This unlucky child, Dustless couldn't help but sigh. Finally, he bowed his head and thought for a while. In short, you should go back. Your parents will go back safe and sound tonight. But, speaking of this, Dustless's tone became a lot lower. He said in a deep voice, although your parents didn't die, they were attacked, and some of their memories faded a lot. Dustless decided to use Geto, reincarnation heavenly jutsu to resurrect Yuichi Origami Kitsune's parents. Anyway, they wouldn't be affected. Dustless's data was better than Uzumaki Nagato's. Take Obito Uchiha for example. She didn't die even after using Geto, reincarnation heavenly jutsu, let alone Dustless. After that, he would use dojutsu to erase the memories of Origami Kitsune's parents. As a result, this matter will inevitably come to an end. It may not be satisfactory, but it is the best ending. Are you serious? Yuichi Origami looked suspiciously at Dustless. He didn't look like he was lying at all. Of course, Dustless nodded and smiled mysteriously. When the time comes, don't be scared. In fact, they have been secretly living in this world, silently observing you. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more, 3,000 rewards plus more, 1,000 comments plus more, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more. Chapter 2109. Are you kidding me? Toichi Origami glared at Wu Chen. This fellow was full of nonsense. Her parents had been burned alive by Itsuka Kotori many years ago. How could they be resurrected? You don't have to lie to save me. Even though I've temporarily lost my memories, I do remember clearly that I've done something wrong in the past. Itsuka Kotori said in a daze. That's the truth. Wu Chen looked at Toshiichi Origami and said, I won't accuse people and I won't lie to a kid. Listen to me, go back now, your parents will come home tonight. Do you think you are a god? You can bring people back from the dead? Tabichi Origami was still skeptical. Dustless could reverse time and bring people back from the dead, but that was something only a god could do. Hee hee. Dustless laughed twice and joked, in my long life, I have done too many professions. I have been a ninja, a pirate, a celestial dragon, and a shinigami. In short, I have many professions. If you want me to become a god, I don't mind playing this new profession. You are crazy. Tabichi Origami frowned and looked at Dustless. She saw that he was smiling and was very confident. She thought to herself, with Dustless here, I can't kill the Balrog. Tabichi Origami could see that Dustless and Itsuka Kotori's relationship wasn't simple. It was impossible for him to watch her kill people without doing anything. Okay, I will believe you this time. Taking a deep breath, Tabichi Origami stared at Itsuka Kotori. Even if she was dissatisfied, she held it in and said, Dustless, I can give you one night. But if you can't bring my parents home, I will still kill this woman. If you can't complete the task, you will have to give me her life. You still want to bargain with me? Dustless touched his chin and looked at the stubborn Tabichi Origami with interest. He waved his hand and said, Fine, 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 I will agree to your conditions. However, Itsuka Kotori's life is her own, I have no right to decide. Then isn't this a loss for me? This kind of agreement has no advantages or benefits for me. Yuichi Origami coldly snorted. Wasn't this just trying to gain something without risking anything? You little girl. Wu Chen sighed. Sure enough, the ignorant were fearless. After living for a few hundred years, he had encountered various kinds of ambitious and ruthless people. Who dared to bargain with him? How about this, if I can't complete the task, I will give you my life. Looking at Yuichi Origami seriously, Wu Chen smiled and said seriously. His tone was magnanimous and natural as if he was talking about something trivial. Are you crazy? Itsuka Kotori and Tabichi Origami exclaimed at the same time. Both of them widened their eyes and looked at Dustless in disbelief. This guy was gambling with his life. Especially Yuan E. Origami, it seemed especially absurd. Her parents were clearly dead and she had seen it with her own eyes. Yet, Wu Chen still insisted that Yuan E. Origami's parents should go home tonight. If they didn't come back, they would rather be killed. Wasn't this retarded? Dustless, compared to Tabichi Origami, Itsuka Kotori was extremely touched. Tears began to well up in her eyes, and her pink eyes were also dotted with tears. For her, Dustless was willing to give up his life and Tabichi Origami's life, which really touched Itsuka Kotori. This guy, on the other side, Murasame Rain, who was usually in a trance and looked very weak, looked at Dustless in a daze, and the sound of excitement could be heard through the mini headphones in her ears. Commander's favorability to Dustless reached 100% in an instant. It was only about 20% to 30% before, but this time it soared to 100%. It's a miracle. Hearing the report in the headphones, Murasame Rain was quite calm. If it was her favorability to Dustless would also rise to this level. This was completely a date with his life, not an act. Itsuka Kotori was touched by Dustless, and it was normal for her favorability to reach 100%. Not everyone had the courage to gamble with their own life for the lives of others. I hope you don't regret it. Tabichi Origami took a deep look at Dustless, and after a few seconds of silence, she looked at Itsuka Kotori and turned away. Her eyes were quite complicated. There was hatred, jealousy, and envy. Are you serious? Seeing Tabichi Origami left, Itsuka Kotori stood up and walked to Dustless, and hurriedly asked, I didn't ask you to gamble with your own life, and this bed is really... Itsuka Kotori opened her mouth but found it hard to speak. This matter had nothing to do with Wu Chen, but he was willing to bet his own life. If he lost, he would definitely die. Itsuka Kotori was extremely touched by Wu Chen's actions, no matter if he was hot-headed or thinking twice before acting. Of course I'm serious. Dustless stretched his body lazily, yawned lazily, and smiled. I may die in the future, but at least at this moment, I haven't lived enough, and I don't plan to die for the time being. You can really let Tabichi Origami's parents go home at night? Itsuka Kotori bit her lower lip and looked at Dustless nervously. If they couldn't go back, Dustless would lose his life. Didn't I tell you? I won't gamble with my life, and I don't want to die for the time being. Since I promised, I can do it. Staring into Itsuka Kotori's eyes, Wu Chen's eyes shone like the moon in the sky. Kotori fell into a daze. I'll leave for a while. Dustless turned around and left. It seemed like he was going to revive Tabichi Origami's parents. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21:10. Looking at Dustless's back, both Rain Murasame and Kotori had a complicated feeling, and they both stared at Dustless in a daze. As for Itsuka Kotori, her heart was filled with warmth and gratitude. She was surprised that Wu Chen was willing to gamble with his life. She was even caught off guard, and her favorability towards Wu Chen rose to a shocking 100%. As for Murasame Rain, she was full of admiration. Being able to make Itsuka Kotori's favorability rise to 100% in an instant, Murasame Rain really admired Dustless. Commander, what's our next plan? After stabilizing her emotions, Rain Murasame looked at Kotori. The next plan. Kotori pondered for a while. Itsuka Kotori thought for a moment. She had regained her rationality after Wu Chen's antics. She said wisely, protect Wu Chen for now. Don't let him get hurt. Although Shido was injured before, Kotori wasn't worried. It wasn't that Kotori underestimated Shido's life, but because Shido sealed Kotori's ability a long time ago, so he got Kotori's recovery ability as an elf, so he wouldn't be in any danger. On the other hand, Kotori was afraid that Dustless wouldn't be able to complete the mission. If he took the initiative to die, everything would be over. This kind of primitive exchange wasn't worth it. After all, this matter had nothing to do with Dustless. Time flew by, and it was evening in the blink of an eye. At this moment, in Tabichi Origami's home, the silver-haired girl was sitting on the sofa, looking at the TV with dull eyes. She was like a lifeless statue. How dare he gamble? Is he not afraid of death? Tabichi Origami repeated this sentence for almost the entire afternoon. She couldn't figure out where Dustless got his confidence from, and he even dared to gamble with his life. After all, the scene of her parents being burned alive was still vivid in her mind. Even now, when she recalled it, her chest would hurt. However, Dustless said that her parents were still alive and would let them go home at night. This was complete nonsense. Let's see what kind of ridiculous excuse this guy will use to get away with it. Yuichi Origami turned off the TV. When she was about to take a shower, the sound of knocking on the door suddenly attracted her. Dustless? Tokichi Origami frowned and then went to open the door in slippers. Creak. As expected, what entered his eyes was indeed Wu Chen, who was grinning from ear to ear. Where is he? Where are my parents? Yuichi Origami poked her head out and looked around. She found that there was no one around. Not to mention her parents, there was not even a stray cat. Not yet. Shrugging, Dustless calmly stepped into Tokichi Origami's house. He casually looked around, not minding that this was a girl's house at all. "You are really not polite at all." Turning her head and glancing at Dustless, who was wandering around, Tokichi Origami's mouth twitched twice. After immediately closing the door, she asked very impolitely, "Where are my parents? You said you would bring them over tonight. Haven't you noticed yet? They are already here." Dustless suddenly smiled mysteriously. "They are here?" Tokichi Origami looked at Dustless suspiciously, and immediately looked around with expectation. There was no one in the big room. It was as quiet as a dead hell. "Are you playing with me?" Tokichi Origami asked angrily. However, in the next second, a sudden change occurred. Tokichi Origami, who originally planned to find Dustless to settle the score, suddenly looked at the miraculous scene in front of her. "Impossible, how can you do this kind of thing?" Tokichi Origami asked in disbelief. Even because of excessive shock, her voice was a bit sharp. A ripple appeared in the space, and 2 holes appeared. Then, 2 young bodies slowly floated out of them. Father and mother? Wiping her eyes, Tokichi Origami suddenly saw her parents, whom she had not seen for many years. Her nose was sour, and she almost couldn't help but cry. Looking at the 2 intact people, Tokichi Origami stared at the mysterious monster in front of her in horror. A few years ago, Tokichi Origami's parents were burned alive by flames. Their bodies were not even left behind. When they were found, they had already become unrecognizable black charcoal. Dustless now used a heaven-defying method to restore the 2 of them. Their appearance was clearly distinguishable. Touching their bodies, there was still a cold temperature and delicate skin unique to humans. Tokichi Origami thought that they were plastic people. "What method did you use to restore my parents' bodies?" Tokichi Origami asked curiously. In fact, the moment she saw the 2 bodies, her heart was already full of gratitude to Dustless. Her parents, who were burned to black charcoal, were perfectly restored by Dustless, as if they were asleep. In fact, at this moment, Tokichi Origami's dislike of Dustless in the past disappeared. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 comments plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 21:11. Staring at the shocked girl, Dustless's reaction was flat, and he explained as if talking to himself, "It's very simple, as Jubi, my vitality is extremely huge. I just used my cells as the basis to reconstruct your parents' bodies. That's all, it's very simple." "Very simple?" Tokichi Origami stared at Dustless in a daze for a long time, then she asked in a shocked voice, Are you an alien? Can this kind of thing be done by humans?" Tokichi Origami was speechless, and she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Especially when she looked at Dustless's relaxed face, she was even more shocked and numb. Such a heaven-defying method was like a magic trick or a game for Dustless. "Didn't I say before, I occasionally play the role of a god, it's normal to be able to do this kind of thing." Dustless shrugged his shoulders, and immediately glanced at Tokichi Origami, and waved his hand, "I'm going to resurrect them now, please stay away." Dustless has already done something to the bodies. Even if they are resurrected now, Origami's parents won't remember the memory of being killed by Tokichi Origami. Gulp. When she heard Dustless say the word, resurrect, Tokichi Origami's heart was in her throat, and she couldn't help but sob up and down. She looked at Dustless in horror and asked excitedly, "Can you really do that kind of thing?" "Of course I can do it, I often use that technique, it's just a small matter." Dustless nodded affirmatively, and immediately smiled. "What's more, if I can't do it, I will have to pay with my life. I told you before, I haven't lived enough, it's too early to die now." Tokichi Origami didn't comment, and immediately took 2 steps back. Dustless didn't waste time seeing this. His right eye instantly turned into reincarnation Sharingan, and he made a hand sign and shouted. "Outer path reincarnation. Kakaka." The void suddenly exploded, and then a large mass of green light pierced through the dark crack and landed on Tokichi Origami's parents. The green light was like specks of starlight, but also like liquid water. The moment it entered the two corpses, some redness appeared on their originally pale faces, and their fingers also began to move gently. "Thank you, Dustless." Where are you?" Ueni Origami, who was about to thank Dustless, helplessly found that Dustless had disappeared from her sight. "We've finally dealt with this big problem." Under the dim illumination of the street lamps, Dustless strolled alone on the path at night. He stretched his waist lazily with a tired look on his face. Although performing Samsara of Heaven didn't affect him much, Dustless felt a little tired. It seems that you're very tired." A soft voice suddenly entered Dustless's ears, and his body suddenly froze. He subconsciously looked over, and a cute and delicate girl appeared in front of him. "Tokisaki Kurumi? Why are you here again?" Dustless frowned and said coldly. This is the third time Tokisaki Kurumi came to find him. "I came to find you with good intentions, but you showed a disgusted and disappointed expression. Do you dislike me that much?" Tokisaki Kurumi looked at Dustless with resentment, and there was a trace of jealousy in her words. "You weren't like this when you were with Tokichi Origami. Is the gap between us that big? You went to see Origami?" Dustless narrowed his eyes, and a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. "This Tokisaki Kurumi is a famous homicidal maniac. Yes, not only did I see her, but I also witnessed the process of you reviving her parents. Really, I thought you were just bluffing, but I didn't expect you to be able to do such a thing." Tokisaki Kurumi looked at Dustless with admiration. Her expression was exaggerated, as if she had discovered a new continent, and her words were full of admiration. Reviving people from the dead, not even humans or elves had such a powerful ability. "Cut the crap, tell me your purpose." Dustless waved his hand, and looked at Tokisaki Kurumi with an impatient expression. When this person came to find him, it was always an impending disaster, and nothing good ever came out of it. Dustless even labeled Tokisaki Kurumi as a jinx in his heart. "I heard that your ability is the same as Itsuka Shido. How about this, let's combine." After a moment of silence, Tokisaki Kurumi became more and more satisfied, and finally gave an answer that made Dustless furious. "P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates." Chapter 21:12. Do you think we can combine just because you say so? Who do you think you are? You want to combine with me? Dustless's eyes flickered as the corner of his mouth curled up. He seemed to be tempted by Tokisaki Kurumi's suggestion. "There's a chance." Seeing Dustless's interest, Tokisaki Kurumi licked her lips and exhaled deeply. Her eyes lit up as she stared at Dustless. Ever since she witnessed Dustless's strength, Tokisaki Kurumi's desire to possess Dustless grew. At the same time, she also knew that Dustless had the same ability as Itsuka Shido. Since she already had Dustless, what was the use of Itsuka Shido? Maybe if she could combine with someone as strong as Dustless, her strength would increase even more. No matter how she looked at it, it was more worth it than Itsuka Shido. Enlighten me? If I had known earlier, I would have killed Itoka Shido. Recalling Itsuka Shido's arrogant words, Tokisaki Kurumi's lips curled into a mocking smile. Itsuka Shido said he would save her. He really didn't know how to write the word death. Looking at Dustless, Tokisaki Kurumi's mind became active. She suggested with a bewitching tone. "There are many benefits if we combine. Why don't we combine with others? At least we can gain strength, gain my ass." Dustless looked at Tokisaki Kurumi coldly. Ignoring her dazed expression, he circled around her. "Are you crazy? Do you have any value in combining with me?" After Tokisaki Kurumi's face turned green, Wu Chen said lazily, "In this world, there are as many people who want to sleep with me as there are sand in the Ganges. You're one of them. Who wants to sleep with you? Stop flattering yourself." We're just taking what we want. Tokasaki Kurumi was so infuriated by Dustless that she wanted to cry, but no tears came out. She looked at Dustless in a frenzy. The fusion she mentioned was not what Dustless understood. What I'm saying is... Just as Tokasaki Kurumi was about to explain herself, Dustless rudely interrupted her. Isn't that what you mean? That's great. It means that you can still be saved. You know what it means to love yourself and know your own worth. You don't deserve me. I originally thought that Rottenwood couldn't be carved, but it seems that I was wrong. TSK, I didn't expect that even Rottenwood could shine one day. It's a miracle. Dustless sighed to himself. You bastard. Dare say that again. Tokasaki Kurumi looked at Dustless and gritted her teeth. Her lungs were about to explode from anger. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? When Tokasaki Kurumi realized that she had bumped into Dustless, she was so angry that she wanted to tear this guy apart. It was fine if he was narcissistic, but the most shameless thing was that he kept comparing Tokasaki Kurumi to himself. How shameless. Go to hell. In her anger, Tokasaki Kurumi activated her ability and aimed her black gun at Dustless. You want to start a fight because of a disagreement? Dustless casually glanced at Tokasaki Kurumi and said lazily, Miss Tokasaki, although I don't like to beat up women, there's a bottom line to everything. Tokasaki Kurumi felt as if she had been electrocuted. She subconsciously lowered her weapon as she recalled the times when Dustless suppressed her. She subconsciously lowered her weapon. Come find me when you've thought it through. Dustless didn't even look at Tokasaki Kurumi and left resolutely. Even though Atsuka Kotori's house was razed to the ground due to the fierce battle, a brand new house was built in no time. It was even bigger than the previous one. After returning home, Wuchen hurriedly washed his face and rinsed his mouth. Then, he went upstairs to sleep. You're such a lazy fella. You'll get indigestion if you sleep right after eating. Atsuka Kotori glanced at Wuchen with her watery eyes and muttered coldly. Perhaps she didn't realize that there was a gentleness in her eyes when she looked at Dustless. Previously, Tokichi Origami came to visit and thanked Dustless for saving her parents. This resolved the grudge between Atsuka Kotori and Tokichi Origami. As a result, Kotori's impression of Dustless had reached 100%. I've always been a lazy person. Training doesn't suit me. Wuchen just shrugged his shoulders, revealing a hopeless expression. Any kind of training was superfluous to him. Time flew by and it was already late at night. Ugh, at night, Wuchen turned over her body. She was lying in the warm bedding. She turned over and closed her eyes. She said in a vague voice, really, why did the bed suddenly become smaller? Perhaps it was an illusion, but Dustless suddenly found the bed, which used to be spacious, to be a little cramped. Why is your reaction so slow? In the darkness, a blurry figure crawled on Dustless's bed. Seeing his sleepy handsome face, she grumbled unhappily, isn't this guy's senses very sharp? How can he not notice me? Or is it because I don't exist? The young girl stared at Wuchen's thin lips. Her face was flushed red and was very cute, like a ripe apple. You're lucky. After hesitating for a while, the girl finally lowered her head and gently kissed Wuchen's lips with a red and cute face. It's warm and cold. Wuchen murmured unconsciously when he was suddenly attacked. Naturally, he noticed it at the first moment. His closed eyes suddenly opened. Little girl, it's fine if you don't sleep in the middle of the night. But how dare you sneak attack me? P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 tips plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21:13. Even with the cover of the night, the girl's perfect appearance couldn't be concealed. Her fair skin gave off a wild beauty in the dark. Perhaps due to the sudden awakening of Dustless, the girl's eyes were empty and gloomy. She stared at Dustless with a blank expression. Her mind was in a mess, and she was stunned on the spot. Kotori? Dustless blurted out. It would have been better if he didn't say it, but as soon as he said it, Kotori's face turned red. Cough cough cough, Kotori coughed twice. She was only wearing simple white pajamas, and her fair legs were exposed to the air. Even though it was dark, Dustless could still see them clearly. She's young, but her body is quite good. If I remember correctly, Kotori is only 12 years old. Dustless muttered to himself. At the same time, he looked at the girl's embarrassed expression and guessed what was going on. She wants to borrow my power to seal herself. Dustless knew Kotori's personality well. She was definitely the arrogant type. She didn't think he was charming enough to make her fall in love with him at all costs. Let's make the act real. Looking at the girl's clear eyes, they were as bright as the moon, pure and sincere. People say that the eyes are the window to the soul, and this window in front of him made him unable to reject it. Although Shido also had the ability to seal elves, Dustless guessed that the reason why he didn't choose that weak kid was because Shido was attacked by Tokisaki Kurumi and was traumatized. He had developed a serious phobia toward elves and knew that his sister was an elf. It was inevitable that there would be a rift in their sibling relationship. If I want to seal a fairy's power, I need her to be shy. Looking at the girl's blushing face, Dustless's indifferent eyes showed a rare trace of gentleness, but it quickly disappeared. He smiled confidently in his heart. It's just making a girl shy. It's too easy. Hee, you have a reason? I don't believe you. You're just trying to take advantage of me. I want to get my money back. A wicked smile appeared on Dustless's cold face. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's as he scanned Kotori's body. He seemed to be thinking about where to start. You better not mess around. I didn't take advantage of you. Itsuka Kotori quickly moved away from Wu Chen's body. She felt uncomfortable being stared at by Wu Chen's invasive gaze. It was as if she was naked. Her entire body was exposed to his gaze. Although she had ambushed Dustless just now, the sad thing was that she didn't feel shy at all. She could still feel the power of the elves in her body. She could only maintain this state for 2 days. After 2 days, Itsuka Kotori might forget about the present and turn back into the violent fire spirit. You want to borrow my power to seal myself? Dustless looked at Itsuka Kotori with a wicked smile and said, if that's the case, I can let bygones be bygones. Itsuka Kotori was overjoyed. Although she could see that Dustless's smile was very cunning, she still nodded. I'm very sorry. Maybe it's a bit abrupt, but I really just want to seal my power. Hee. Dustless just smiled and asked lazily, so, did you seal your power? This. No. Itsuka Kotori's eyes were dim, and she looked very disappointed. Since you kissed me without sealing your power, it means that you took advantage of me. Wuchen looked at Itsuka Kotori shamelessly and said, if that's the case, I'm going to get it back. Bansho Tensei. Dustless used his Rinnegan ability, and under the inertia of gravity, although Itsuka Kotori struggled, she was still taken into Dustless's arms. Puff. Being taken into Dustless's arms, Itsuka Kotori felt like she was electrocuted, and her strength was inexplicably sucked away. She looked up at Dustless's playful eyes, and her body trembled slightly. It smells so good. The elegant fragrance suddenly rushed into her nose, and Itsuka Kotori's beautiful eyes were suddenly in a trance. It was hard to imagine that a man who looked like a sloppy man could have such a nice smell, and it was intoxicating. You're really greedy. You took advantage of me again. Seeing the intoxicated Itsuka Kotori, Dustless showed his white teeth, and with a teasing look on his face, he suddenly raised his hand to slap her. I didn't. Dustless's words were like a basin of cold water, and Itsuka Kotori instantly woke up. Looking at the raised hand, a bad premonition flashed in her heart. You're too young to learn good things, you must be punished. Dustless suddenly turned Itsuka Kotori's body around, and very skillfully pulled down her white skin a little bit, and her white skin was like a flawless jade. Paw! Dustless decisively slapped Itsuka Kotori, and instantly there was a dark red palm print. Ouch! Itsuka Kotori was like a frightened white rabbit, her heartbeat accelerated, and she let out a frightened scream, but it sounded soft and powerless, and it was like a disguised request. Damn it! Itsuka Kotori's whole face was red, and she was sweating, and her small hands were clenched tightly. She didn't expect that she would be so weak. Pa! How dare you attack me? Pa! How dare you take advantage of me again? In the next few minutes, Dustless mercilessly slapped Itsuka Kotori a few more times. Itsuka Kotori's face was as red as hot iron, and her watery eyes were covered with a layer of mist. She turned her head to look at the red area where Dustless slapped, and wanted to find a hole to hide in. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 reviews plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 21:14. It's about time. Looking at the girl's red cheeks, Wuchen smiled faintly. He knew that the time had come. He stared at Itsuka Kotori, who was blushing. Wuchen also stopped hitting her. Even though it was only a few minutes, Itsuka Kotori lowered her head, afraid to look at Dustless. She must be shy. If it was a normal person who dared to hit her like this, with Itsuka Kotori's personality, she would have turned into an angel and torn the person apart. But now, Dustless was Itsuka Kotori's savior, and her favorability towards Dustless had reached 100%. You stopped. Itsuka Kotori was surprised to find that Dustless had stopped hitting her. She didn't know why, but she didn't feel happy. Instead, she felt a sense of melancholy. Itsuka Kotori didn't know why, but she didn't say it out loud. Don't think that this is the end. Dustless, I won't let you go so easily. Itsuka Kotori looked at Dustless and gritted her teeth. She looked very angry. After all, being hit on the butt was something that any girl would find hard to accept. She might even hate the person who hit her but for the rest of her life. However, Wuchen turned a deaf ear to her. He leaned over and pressed Itsuka Kotori onto the bedding. What are you doing? Being pressed down by Dustless, Itsuka Kotori asked in fear. Huff 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 huff, because the two were so close, Itsuka Kotori could even smell Dustless's breath. The warm breath blew on her cheeks, and the blush on her face turned even redder. The time is right. Dustless stared at Itsuka Kotori's face that was inches away from his. His whole body pressed down on her, and he could even feel her racing heartbeat. Finally, under Itsuka Kotori's shocked gaze, Dustless kissed her. Itsuka Kotori stared blankly at Dustless. Her mind went blank. She didn't expect Dustless to be so daring. Woo 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 woo. After being stunned for a moment, Itsuka Kotori suddenly struggled. However, her weak strength was nothing compared to Dustless. She was simply too weak. Dustless even stroked her on purpose. Soon, Itsuka Kotori's breathing quickened, and her body temperature rose rapidly. She subconsciously obeyed Dustless. Boom boom boom. Itsuka Kotori's body suddenly shone with a bright white light. Immediately afterward, a large amount of energy surged out of her body and silently entered Dustless's body. The speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, the power in Itachi Kodo was completely drained. Soon after, the pajamas on her body also disappeared. Okay. Dustless immediately moved away from the girl's lips when he felt Kotori's power entering his body. Okay. After the two separated, Itsuka Kotori regained her consciousness. She gritted her teeth. After their lips parted, Dustless's lustful handsome face returned to its usual coldness. Could it be, you were faking it just now? Itsuka Kotori looked directly into Wu Chen's eyes and asked in a perturbed manner, did you purposely make that expression of lust for me in order to seal away my fairy power? So what if I did, and so what if I didn't? Dustless asked calmly. His tone was completely different from before. He sensed the power in his body and said slowly, just like you said, we both took what we needed. Itsuka Kotori's heart felt empty after hearing this. Although she was glad that her power was sealed, the words, "We both took what we needed," still hurt her. Little girl. Dustless looked at the disappointed Itsuka Kotori and teased, "Don't tell me you like me? What a sin." Pfft. Itsuka Kotori put her hands on her hips and said arrogantly, "Even if all the men in the world died, I wouldn't consider you. You sure are stubborn." Dustless rolled his eyes and said with a sigh, "Also don't know who was the one who was delirious with emotion just now and almost fainted over, you. You're asking for it." Itsuka Kotori's face turned red and kicked at Chin Xiaobei. Plop. Who would have thought that Dustless would be able to dodge her leg easily with a god-tier skill? He then flipped over and pressed Kotori onto the bed again. Little girl. Dustless moved closer to Itsuka Kotori. They looked into each other's eyes. Then, Dustless raised his right hand. "Don't do anything stupid." Itsuka Kotori was very nervous. She thought that Dustless was going to spank her again. She cursed in her heart, "This bastard, he's going to take advantage of me again. He's the one who likes me." But just when Itsuka Kotori thought that Dustless was going to spank her again, Dustless raised his right hand and pointed at the closed door. "Go out, I won't send you off. Good night." Dustless then pushed Itsuka Kotori away and closed his eyes in satisfaction. He said, "You've disturbed me for a while. Don't disturb my sleep." "You." Itsuka Kotori's mouth twitched and almost vomited blood. She was naked, but this bastard was looking at her with disdain. She was pissed again. "You want me to leave?" "I'm not leaving. I'm going to sleep here tonight. I'm going to snatch your bed and sleep with your woman. Remember this, bastard, this is my home." Dustless's words angered Itsuka Kotori. She was like an exploding barrel of gunpowder, glaring at Dustless. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 21:15. Itsuka Kotori's eyes were burning with fire. Her already deep red eyes were now even redder, as if they were blood red. It was clear that she was furious with Dustless. "Do you think I will leave just because you told me to? No way." Itsuka Kotori put her hands on her hips. Her beautiful eyes were filled with anger and dissatisfaction. This was her home, and Dustless, an outsider, had chased her away time and time again. How despicable. Tsk tisk. Dustless opened his eyes again and said with a smile, "You are quite ambitious. You want to sleep with me, and you want to sleep with me. If this isn't love, then what is? For a violent girl like you, having too much charm is not a good thing. You win. Just wait and see." Itsuka Kotori was speechless. She cursed him in her mind. In the end, he glared fiercely at Wu Chen. Then, he turned around and left in indignation. He helplessly discovered that he was far from being Wu Chen's opponent in terms of strength or bickering. If he continued to stay, he would only bring disgrace upon himself. Bang! Itsuka Kotori kicked the door open and walked out of Dustless's room in a huff. She didn't go back to her own room. Instead, she went to take a shower. "Don't fall into my hands," Itsuka Kotori mumbled as she walked away. Dustless had given her quite a blow. That despicable guy doesn't know how to read people's minds. Itsuka Kotori lay in the warm pool and stared at the ceiling. She was silent for a while, then a strange smile appeared on her face. Or does Dustless have a problem in that area? He didn't even look at my naked body. He even looked at me with disdain. Despicable guy, am I that despicable? Here, Itsuka Kotori touched her face and looked at her reflection in the water. Her perfect facial features were flawless. It must be Dustless's problem, which is why he can look at me so calmly. After much consideration, Itsuka Kotori concluded that it was Dustless's problem. It must be a physical defect. If Dustless knew that Kotori dared to make up stories about him like this, he would definitely teach her a lesson. He had to admit that women were strange creatures. When you took the initiative to pay attention to them, you would think that they were up to no good. If you ignored them, they would think that you were looking down on them. Sometimes, they were really unreasonable. On the other hand, Dustless had just sent Itsuka Kotori away and was about to have a good night's sleep when an unexpected intruder came to visit him. Plop. Compared to Itsuka Kotori, this intruder was much braver. She jumped down from the sky and landed on Dustless's bed. Crack. Due to the strength of this sudden attack, Dustless's bed was crushed. Is there an end to this? Wuchen raised his head, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He stared at the perfect body in front of him and rubbed his temples. Did you go to the wrong place? 10 Fragrance. If you want to take a bath, you should go to the bathroom. The young girl that entered his eyes was Nightblade God 10 Fragrances. However, what gave him a headache was that the current her was only wearing a simple bathrobe. Her white skin was in full view. I just saw Kotori leave your room. What unspeakable secrets did you two do? Nightsword God 10 Fragrance glared at Dustless. His cheeks were puffed up and his gem-like eyes were filled with a strong desire to possess Dustless. Her. Dustless recalled his previous experience and said lazily, "It's nothing. Kotori was just trying to take advantage of me by kissing me secretly." Plop. However, as soon as Dustless finished speaking, Toka pounced on him. Her body was like a snake, and she skillfully twisted with Dustless. Not only that, she also touched Dustless. Her restless hands touched all over Dustless's body. She even carefully touched some important places through his pajamas. Why are there so many female perverts these days? Dustless's mouth twitched. He felt helpless. Ever since he tamed Toka, this innocent girl had developed a strong sense of dependence on him. She clung to Dustless all day long. Don't touch me. Get your hands off me. Perceiving that the most important place had been attacked, even with Dustless's calm disposition, his face collapsed. That place was not to be touched casually. Kotori kissed you. Toka pouted and complained, "What's wrong with me touching you? This can improve our relationship. Don't tell me you hate me. Who told you all this nonsense?" When Wuchen heard this, he was speechless to the extreme. It's okay to enhance feelings, but do you have to touch me indiscriminately? Wuchen was also secretly conflicted about this. Yidao Shintoka was too naive, and the school was quite a lively place. There were many fujoshis around her. Don't touch me. Seeing that the girl didn't know when to back off, Wuchen's tone inevitably became more serious and even carried a hint of reprimand. Nightblade God 10 Fragrance's body suddenly trembled slightly and stopped moving. She looked at Wuchen pitifully. Don't you hate me? You just misunderstood, Dustless replied calmly. Hee hee, if you don't, prove it now. Toka's eyes flashed with slyness. She giggled and pounced on Dustless again. This time, she pressed down on Dustless. Her eyes flickered with a terrifying green light. She waved her arms and even wanted to hold Dustless in her arms. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.